we do have, I told you a little bit about Canto Ostinato, but Simeon wrote other compositions, evening filling works, like Incantation 4. This goes like this. I just play one part. But if you look at the score, for instance, from Incantation, it has each part, or a piano part, has 3 different layers, and each performer can choose between the layers. And there are 5 parts, so there are 15 layers from which the musicians can choose. If we compare it to the canto has only 5 layers. We have 1, and then we have 2, and then we have 3, and we have 4, and 5 is... That's all there is. But it's an open structure, and this is very interesting about the music from Simeon. You can play, you may play, you don't need to play. You don't have to participate to the group, to the ensemble. So a performance could look like an extended version of 4.33. Here we are, John Cage. It could, and you could only play like, and just leave it in a pedal ring, while the others play. For instance, that's just those are possibilities you can do. So it's basically a huge framework from which, and the whole Canto Ostinato, for instance, it exists out of 106 little sections. Simeon called it sections. And some of the sections are 8 bars long, some of the sections are 5 bars long, but most of them are 2 bars or 4 bars long. The only thing that's, for the most of the sections, they go from 1. You begin somewhere and you go on. From if you start at 1, if you finish 1, you go to 2, and then you go to 3, and so on and so on. Except for the middle part. In the middle part, in the 88 section, you can go forward and backwards. And even if you play with 4 people or 5 people, what we sometimes do with 4 grand pianos or with organ, 4 pianos and organ or 5 pianos and organ, if 2 are going forward and 2 are going backwards, where are we? You need a different kind of structure how you can move on forward. So this is what we normally do. We play a little fragment. Let's say. Now, in the older days, the musicians were playing, and one was deciding, okay, let's move on to the next spot. And of course, if one, and then as soon as, basically that's one of the rules that is in C, by Terry Riley, you know, if you hear you are more than 3 bars apart, separate from each other, then you should move on forward and join the rest. You're not allowed to stay behind too far. It's the same rule with the canto in the beginning, but of course you have a lot of disturbance in between, because some people, oh, where am I? What's happening? Who is moving forward? Because the harmonies don't match. For instance, if I'm going here. Now, imagine if you know if you have this together, it doesn't really match together. So in the old days, there were a lot of blurring parts in the middle, Whereas two people are moving on and two people said, no, not yet. And the other two said, yes, we have to go on. And Simeon didn't like that. And so he once told me, you should make somebody the leader of a group, but not the leader. The leader only decides after a democratical decision. You look around, you look everyone in the eye, you have eye contact, and you say, okay, I'm ready. Are you ready? Not yet? Okay, then we wait. Are you ready? Yes, you're ready. Are we ready? Okay, are you ready? And then I give a sign, and then we go on. And I never...
Birds do that when they migrate. They all check with each other whether they're
exactly.
ready to fly off.
And they never collide.
No.
And it's amazing, you know? You see a huge... a big pile of birds that fly out, and there's never an accident. Never. You never see it in the air when they're like this, and it's going, oh, what? It's amazing. There's never an accident in the air. So I look around, and of course people also look around, and they make contact, and it's a complete kind of interaction. The interaction is going on all the time, all the concert. So we are just playing and playing and looking. And then I give a sign, and then we go all together to the next section. So that's in a way how we communicate with each other, and that's why the audience loves it, because they see it's being created on the spot. We are making the music while playing. Nothing is predetermined. So sometimes we wait a little bit longer, and it's a real potential hit here in the
free range music.
No, it's
organic. It's organic. It's
organic.
Communicational.
Exactly. And the audience is part of it.
Yes.
Because if for instance, if I stay too long at the same spot and it gets boring, then people are, you know how people react in the concert hall. Okay, then you move on. Okay, let's move on. Let's do the next fragment. So it's also an interaction with the audience.
That aliveness is important in music too.
Oh yes,
people notice,
especially for this kind of music.
Yes,
and they love to see the interaction. And there's a lot of smiling and faces and things. And the music is so complex. I mean, you've never reached the point. I played it myself together with Sandra. I think we played it over 300 times now. Never one time is the same. All the duration is different. I mean, you can repeat whatever you want, and you can leave out whatever you want. You can make accents where you want. You can press the pedal, use the pedal, or not. So there are so many varieties. It's you can't even measure it. So every performance is different, and the audience really loves it, and that's really a key point of minimal music that I really like in music. If I compare it to what I learned, if I play a Rachmaninoff, it's always the same. I can play it a little bit different, but the piece will be the same. With the canto, it can be a complete different piece.
It's a lens, isn't it, more than an object?
Exactly. Yes.
I could say.
That's a good comparison. Yeah. So it's the freedom you get as a musician while playing it. It's like you are a part of the composition, of the recreation of the music, much more than when you did your lesson. You learned your skills and you can play it and of course every hall is different, every piano is different, every audience is different, and of course you never play the same. Also, as a classical pianist, I know that you never play the same. But with this kind of music, there is an extra element. This extra element, and here we go, that puts you on the chair of the composer. So, being on the chair as a performer, you are also a composer, because you really shape the form of the piece on the bench when playing the piano. Instead of, shall we do this, or shall I do this, shall I play this accent here? It's really the matter of recreating. I mean, I can't play Rhapsody in Blue. I can't say, okay, I will skip this part without telling the orchestra. I mean, to make an example.
different.
You know, there are different gaps. You can skip different parts from Rhapsody in Blue. That's one of the pieces where you have this ability, but you have to negotiate that on forehand in rehearsals with the orchestra so that they know where you are, what are you going to play. With canto, you will see on the spot. And you just have to listen to each other and communicate, and that's really something that the audience loves. And now I'm maybe coming to the next most important message from this kind of music. It attracts a younger audience, a new audience, a newer audience that has never gone to classical concerts. And if I talk to, for instance, to the Concertgebouw, and they say every year we lose 3 rows of people who die. You know, every year they bought the whole series of the piano series of orchestra series, and people die. And the average age is old and older, and of course people die, but there's no new refill. No new young growth that comes to the concert. And this kind of music, this music by Simeon Ten Holt, I will call it minimal music. Simeon hated the.
They all do.
They all do. Phil Glass, he hates it.
No one
Steve
likes
Reich,
the category.
No. But it needs a category. It needs a category. The music. It lends its principles, its compositional principles, and it's also its interactional principles. It borrows it from minimalism. It's been invented in C by Terry Riley, and by Philip Glass. There's an interesting story. Simeon Ten Holt wrote the Canto Ostinato after he heard Philip Glass playing in the Concertgebouw, not on the stage but in the hall, down where the seats are. The seats were removed, and Philip Glass played there with a 3-piano ensemble. And Simeon loved the idea of, you know, putting the music down, not on the stage, but in between the people. And you know, that's maybe also a little bit Dutch, not very high up, but more into the people, more be normal, not very upper class, but you know, but okay.
Yeah.
Maybe, but that's very interesting. So he heard the 3 pianos piece by Philip Glass, and that's when he thought, okay, I have to write something like that. That's when he started thinking about writing something like what later appeared to be Canto Ostinato. For, and here again I have to say it once more, for keyboard instruments. So it's not written for piano, it's not written for organ, it's not written for carillon or synthesizers, it's for keyboards, chordboards. So it's not one, but for more than one.
Generic.
Yeah. And like in minimalism, like Steve Reich, always 2 pianos, 2 grands, 2 grand pianos, always pairs. So what we, for instance, did is 2 pianos and 2 organs, 2 pianos, 2 marimbas, piano and carillon over our whole city. There are many varieties, and Simeon took the freedom and left the freedom when his compositions were republished and put into finale for a real good look. Because before that everything was written, handwritten. He had handwritten scores, but everything was digitalized. And then I talked a long time with him, and I said, okay, this is the time. If you want to change it for only a piano composition, for instance, Meandre, another composition of it, he quotes, Meandre for pianos. Not for keyboard instrument, no, specifically for pianos. Well, of course we know if a composer really determines and writes it down, then it's his purpose. If you play it with another instrument, it will be an arrangement. If you change the color of the instrument. And like many composers, you're not allowed to just change the instrument. But for Canto he said, for keyboard instruments, and he said, no, I want to keep it open, free, for keyboard instruments, for any combination of instruments. And